You know where it's at, and you know that you can make an appointment with me if you need help with your resume, interviewing skills, job search, all that type of thing. But tonight, what we're going to talk about is how to do resumes and cover letters. We're going to talk a little bit about interviewing skills, and this is going to be specific to the technology industry. Most of the place where I pulled this information is from when I worked in HR at Google for 1 year. I was a candidate host, and so we'd have candidates come into Google and interview. They were there all day, and so I would see what candidates did that were good and what they did that was bad. What the hiring managers would talk about when the candidates left, what they could do better. So I can give that information to you. I've also sat on a few IT panels in Seattle where they had Zulily, City of Seattle, LinkedIn, and they would tell us, they were employers that would be telling us what they were looking for in candidates in the tech industry and the challenges they were facing trying to find people. So I've incorporated that into this as well. Any questions before we get started? Yeah?
So this is kind of like inside information. I love it.
It is inside information. Yes, that's exactly what it
Good
is.
thing it's not Wall Street. We'd all be in trouble. Oh,
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. Okay, so what we're going to go over is the resume, duties versus accomplishments. There is a big difference. And we're going to talk a little bit about interviewing, marketing yourself. That's super important. And then I've got some tech employer insights from my industry people. So the reason why we're all going to college, spending all this money, spending all this time, is because this is what we want to hear. We want to hear you're hired. But in order to get to this step, there's a couple things that we have to do and do really well in order to get a job. One thing that you can do even before you start the resume, because this will affect how you build your resume, is be thinking about what kind of job you want when you're done. Of course, there's part-time jobs, work-from-home jobs. Do you want to be in Seattle? That opens up a whole realm of different tech companies. Do you want to stay on the east side? Be thinking about these things. Also be thinking about the type of workplace that you might fit in best. Working for a nonprofit in tech would be very different than working for the government, like a city or a county job. And then also family-owned businesses, startups, large companies, small companies, they're all very different. And your resume will look different depending on which one you're applying to. Yes?
Is it an asset to work at home? Do companies see that as an asset or not? I mean...
Depends on the company. Some of them want you to work from home. They don't want you to come into the office and take up space. They don't have any more space.
Right, exactly.
I used to work for Expedia as a travel writer, and we were forced to work from home for years. Wow. And we wanted to come into the office, and they said, no, there's no room. So it can be an asset, yes, but it really just depends on the company.
Right.
The family-owned company probably wants to see you there.
Right.
It also depends on how the team interacts together. And you see phases, you see times where everybody goes and works from home for a company, and then something happens, it's not working out, and they bring them back in. So this kind of seems to flux over a couple of years, and it changes. But be thinking about those things. And then we'll go a little bit deeper into the resume. The only purpose for the resume is to get an interview. That's all it is. It's just to get your foot in the door. It's a marketing document, so someone looks at this resume and decides if you could be a possible match for what they need for their business. The resume should show the employer that you match their job. That's why every single time you do a resume, you are looking at the job description and you're editing your resume, you're updating it. So you're not using the same resume to apply for multiple jobs. Who knew that? Okay, good, good, this is good. There was a time where people didn't know that. They would do one resume and say, this is it for all these jobs. But it has to be specific. It's going to persuade the employer to contact you to learn more. So it's kind of a tease. It's not everything about you. It's just enough for them to want to interview you. And I like to think of it as a snapshot of your experience and education and how you can help them. There's a lot of resumes that I would see out there that was more about, I want this and I'm looking for that. It's more about how you can help the employer solve their problems. So how long do you think employers spend looking at each resume?
10 seconds.
2 minutes.
7 seconds.
Yes, You're very close. It's 8 seconds on average. That's not very long. So they're really just glancing at it. If it's a person looking at the resume, and let's say the resume is this big, they're glancing usually from the middle part up. So the most important information needs to be on the top. They may not even get to the bottom. And why might this be a trick question? And you mentioned it earlier. Why might this be a trick question? How long would a person look at a resume if they were looking to hire people or just interview them?
They've already been looked at. They've already been pre-screened.
They're looking for keywords.
Keywords, yeah.
They're looking for keywords for something you catch the eye. Right?
In a sense, because it might not be a person looking at your resume. It might be a resume robot. It might be an applicant tracking system.
Yep.
So when that happens, it's not even 8 seconds.
Yep.
It's the keywords, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but just to know, it's not always a person looking at your resume. So you have to make it super easy for them, person or robot, to make a match. There's 2 different types of resumes. The functional resume is if you have time gaps. So let's say that you worked for a while and then you took a few years off to take care of a sick relative, or maybe you got sick. But what it does is the functional resume will kind of camouflage that a little bit. The chronological resume will go with dates in order, and most students have chronological resumes because we're putting your education up front and we're putting dates in order. But just know the functional resume does exist, and we'll look at examples of both. There's also a master resume, and that would be one that's your generic resume that you would take to a job fair, for example. It's not targeting any specific employer. And then the targeted resume is the one we talked about. You're tailoring it for each job you apply for. And so this one right here, this one is, I think this one is, let me see. This is the chronological resume. And so what it has is we've got a headline up here. And so this is just going to be a summary statement about you. And how you can help them and what you're going to contribute to the employer. It's very short. Your education would go up at the top so they know that you're a recent graduate. If you have a GPA over 3.5, you could put that on there. Like Dean's List, you mentioned that if you're on the Dean's List, or part of any clubs or anything like that, you could put that in here under education. And then we put your skills up here. So these skills, you don't have to be paid to put these up here. These are skills that you just happen to have. You learned them, you already knew them. Maybe you learned them on the job too. But we put your skills, and then we start with experience. And does experience need to be paid?
No.
No, absolutely not. It's still experience. So for this one, this person did an internship at Nintendo as a game tester for a few months. And so they're putting the things that they learned on here, they're putting accomplishments, and here's some action words that you can lead with when you're working on the bullets under the experience. Anything that you transformed, designed, directed, managed, initiated, promoted, collaborated, these action words help you build that. So you're putting accomplishments in here, because your skills are already up here. They don't need a list of job duties necessarily. They'd rather see accomplishments. And then down here, this is a hackathon in Kirkland. This person just volunteered as the team lead, but see how they can put that under experience and how nice that looks? This person's never had a paid job in the tech industry before, but it looks like they do. So this is one way to fill out the resume. And let's look at another one. So this one is an example of the functional resume. Like I said, I don't think many of you will be using this, but I just want you to know for future that it exists. What we've done here is the person has their professional summary up here, 5 years of experience as a nursing assistant. Not tech related, but that's okay. You get the idea. They've got their skills up here, their education. We've taken off the date they got their certificate because this person got that 20 years ago. And ageism exists. We don't want to give away what the person's age might be in this particular case. We made sure that they knew that their license was in good standing. So they got their certificate, the license is good. And this is where it says 3 years as a certified nursing assistant, 2 years at another place. And so see how you can't really tell when the person got this experience. Human resources professionals know what this means. They know it means there's been a gap. Most of the time, they are okay with it. And they might even just be looking from here up and glancing, but at least it would make them curious enough to want to contact the person to find out more about them. But that could be how you handle gaps. Or if you switched careers. Let's say you were in tech like 10 years ago and you left for a while and then you came back. You use a functional resume. Any questions about that? And then this is a resume of a person that worked at Microsoft after a couple years. So eventually your resume starts looking like this. And I put my name on there, it's not really me, I just wanted to protect the person's identity. But you've got a professional summary up there, 10 years in the tech industry, you've got achievements highlighted. These employers love to see achievements. They love to see what you've done. And an experience that's pretty chronological, and then education on this. Again, we took off the date they went to University of Washington because it was 30 years ago, and certifications, always good to highlight too. The resume should only be one page. If you are applying to be a manager or a director or some really high level position, you could go up to 2 pages. I did see some at Google that were about 2 pages because they were going for pretty high profile jobs. But as a recent graduate, 1 page should do it. So resume do's, things you are going to do, is tailor the resume for each position. Check your grammar and spelling errors. You'd be surprised at how many are out there. If a hiring manager sees that, or an HR person or a screener sees that, they just pass. They don't even really think about it. So definitely be aware of that. You can have somebody else look at your resume if you need to. Same thing with your LinkedIn. I see a lot of typos in LinkedIn profiles, and about 85% of large employers check your LinkedIn before you come in. So make sure that that looks good. You want a clear, concise layout. Most important information on the top. White space is okay around the sides. It's easy on the eyes. If it's true, you can put multilingual or bilingual on your resume. People forget to do that. Employers do like that. Sometimes they'll even ask for that in the job description. And the resume is also going to help you with the interview. If you have your accomplishments on there and they give you a behavioral question, like, does anybody know what a behavioral question is or how it starts?
Yeah.
How does it start?
It's a start. They also call start something, right? How you solve a
That's how
problem.
you answer it.
Yeah.
But what would the behavioral question be? Like, it's the most common interview question type.
If you were put in this situation, what would you do?
Yeah.
Exactly. Tell me about a time when. And so this is hard. You have to remember all these things that happened. If you have your resume and it has the accomplishments on it and you have that with you at the interview, you can use those as talking points. So it gets you through the interview as well, if you list the accomplishments on your resume. Now, duties versus accomplishments. A duty would be just the tasks that you had at work. Those are good. They do want to know those, but even better is an accomplishment. And so here's a good example. So if I put as a bullet point under experience, I was an event planner, I put planned event for a nonprofit organization. That's okay. Shows I have work experience. But if I put raise $9,000 for Summit assistance stocks by plan a chariot event with 150 plus attendees, that just looks more robust. It gives the employer a better glimpse of what you can do. And we love putting numbers in things. That works for people. So think about that when you're doing the resume. And if you come in and see me in the Employment Resource Center, I can look at your experience bullet points and help you beef those up a little bit if you need to. Questions to ask to fill in the resume for those achievements. How did I stand out among others? And they might even ask you that in the interview. What makes you different than your peers? Why should I hire you? Those types of questions. Was I recognized for a job well done? What new process improvements did I suggest or implement in my last job? Or even during projects in college. There's a lot of times where people come up with process improvements in class. What problems did I solve? Everybody wants a problem solver. Did I save the company money? And then estimate how much that was and put it in the resume. And this is one that the tech panel told me the other day in Georgetown. They said, if they can answer this one question on the resume, whose life did I make better by my actions at work? They said, what was the impact this person had at that job? So this is kind of big picture thinking, but this is what they want to know. This is what entices them to bring you in for interviews. We talked about this already, but experience isn't just paid. You can put internships under there, volunteer work, community activity involvement, technical projects, educational research. I've seen people do that as well. Any awards that you've received, no matter how small, you could put awards in there, and that looks good. Certificates appreciation are good. If you volunteer for almost any event, they're gonna give you a certificate. You can put it on there. These are ideas that I had for resumes when people were struggling with that part. Hackathons, those are things you can even plan here. I've been to some at Microsoft before myself, but you could make up your own and then put on there what you learned on the resume. Whiteboard clubs, I got that one from Green River College. I guess they have a whiteboard club, and so they put that on their resumes. Escape rooms that you could create, and then be a tech tutor or a volunteer at the library, at a senior center, at a nonprofit, anywhere where that could help you get some experience. And maybe you only do it for one time on a Saturday, maybe you do it for a few months, but that would help you fill in the resume. Question?
Yeah, Mary, I'm not sure if there's a place or if it's appropriate, but I do have some documents from previous professors that are reference documents with head letters of the school.
Usually you would bring those to the interview. Unless they're asking for those, I would not give it to them up front.
Okay.
They want as least amount as possible, and they want it really specific. That would be something I would bring to the interview with you, but I wouldn't be giving them all that stuff up front.
Okay.
Unless it was a small company.
Oh.
Then I actually might do something like that because they would appreciate it. But depending on where you're going to apply to, most of the larger companies won't even probably look at that. They won't even know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. For education, even now when you're building your resume, put your education on there, and then all you have to do is put expected graduation and the date. So I had seen a lot of people leaving off their education at this early point in their schooling, and you don't have to do that. You want to put it on there, you can put your GPA. This is an example of somebody who started a program and then left to go work in the industry and didn't finish, but they plan on coming back. And so what they can do with their resume is in progress, still list it, your degree, still list it, and then put in progress, earned 60 of 95 credits. And yeah, it's kind of vague, but it allows you to put it on there, and it also allows you to be honest, I haven't finished yet, I didn't graduate yet, because you don't want to misrepresent yourself. Okay, we're gonna do a quick turn and talk. We've got time. So turn to your neighbor and just talk a little bit about what would we not put on a resume for 30 seconds, and then we'll reconvene. What would you not put on a resume?
Hi.
I would put my age on.
Selfie?
In dog years, I'm dead, so I don't know. I wouldn't put my age. Probably religion. I wouldn't put religion on there. I wouldn't.
I'm not getting my resume.
What?
Hobbies.
That's true.
No, that's all right. Well, there's two people here.
If you're
that can talk, that's all
applying for
right. I'm not trying to bug you.
engineering job and your hobby is related, I guess.
Okay, we'll stop now, just because I know some of you have classes
That makes sense. Yeah. Stay focused on
So,
what you're applying.
report back to me. Time out. Report back to me. Throw some things out. What'd you come up with? What should we not put on this resume?
Age.
Yeah, we're not gonna put your age. We're not gonna put a selfie. Only if we're trying to get a job in the theater, like front of house type stuff, then we can get away with it. But no, there are no pictures going on here.
Experience not related to the job?
Yeah.
True.
Skills or?
Yeah, the only time sometimes we put experience not related to the job is if it was a job where we can use a transferable skills.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can do that. So that would, yeah, but generally no, we're gonna make this look like an IT resume. Anything else?
Relevant education, like if you have a college degree, you wouldn't put a high school diploma on.
Right, exactly. You're gonna lead with your top thing. Yeah, we're not putting high school diplomas on there anymore. They don't need to know that.
Excessive personal info.
Right, yeah, we're not gonna put in the headline, I've got 2 kids and a beautiful wife. I've seen it. I don't know what I think I've even seen people come to interviews and bring a little portfolio, and I think it's gonna be projects, and it's pictures of their kids. We're not doing anything like that. So the resume, it's not an entire work history, it's not your life story. You don't need to include every skill you have, especially if it has nothing to do with the job. Let's see, and we talked about this, the impact you had on a company. This is an interesting one to me. We're not going to list interest in hobbies, and this came up at a Microsoft panel where I said, what do you think about people putting things on there like ran a marathon, climbed Mount Fuji? I'm torn on this because I think it shows a glimpse into the person, and I also think it shows that they are healthy and value wellness. But Microsoft specifically said, no, that wastes our time. We don't want to see that. That has nothing to do with the job. The only people that seemed to like that type of thing were employers like Patagonia and REI because it made sense to them for their company. But the tech companies generally were like, no. Zulily said no. They just said, we don't want to see those types of hobbies. It doesn't make a difference to us. We have a job to do. We're trying to fill that
I have a
job.
question.
Yeah.
What if all the work experience you have is not related to IT and you're applying for an IT job?
Then you would go out and get some volunteer thing on the weekend at the senior center as a tech tutor. I mean, that's one thing you could do to fill that in. If you had a job before, like let's just say at a Home Depot or something, sometimes we can use transferable skills like customer service and teamwork and achievements and kind of make that work there. But generally, while you're in school, you're going to be building up that experience here in projects. And just put that under there, and you'll put like volunteer or you'll put like class project so they understand you weren't paid for it. But that's the time.
And how far back would you go from your job experience?
Generally, we only go back 10 years. Unless there's something a really long time ago that was technology related, and then we use that functional resume and bring it in. But under experience, you only need probably 2 different things, 2 projects, 2 jobs. That's about it because you're a recent graduate. Yeah.
What if you're making resume to apply for the internship? What kind of information can be included because you don't have internship?
Oh, if you're doing the resume for an internship, same type of thing. You're going to put under experience, you're going to put class projects, and then you're going to list the things that you accomplished in the project. You're going to put your skills up there that you learned in the classes, and that's it. And then in the headline, put that you're seeking an internship. And they will generally be okay with not having a lot of work experience. They're okay with that.
Would you put the classes you've taken?
What's that?
Would you list the tech classes you've taken?
You could if they didn't overlap on your skills. So yeah, if you had skills and you had JavaScript and things like that, there's no reason to put that class. But if there was a class that you had that wasn't in skills, you could list those, absolutely. Yeah.
Also, I think that if you do run out of words explaining a certain thing that you've learned, do not use the word etc.
No, because they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Or and more, like, what does that mean? They're literally glancing, they need that information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
etc. would just be a
says
waste
etc.
of a space. Yeah. And let's see what else we have. Don't use pronouns I, me, and my. These are just fragmented sentences, fragmented bullet points. And then we don't put references available on request anymore at the bottom. You probably all know that, but that was something people used to do. And the idea is that, again, it wastes space. If they ask you for references, you're gonna give them. I mean, that's just a given. And then these are all the things that I think you guys were talking about as well. We're not putting our height, weight, age, date of birth, place of birth, marital status, ethnicity or race, gender, health. I've seen people say things like, I've had some health issues in the last couple of years, so no, we're not putting anything like that. No social security number. You don't need to bring up reasons for leaving a previous job unless they ask you, and they probably won't. But don't be putting that kind of thing on there. No pictures, no religion, unless you're gonna work at a church. If you're applying to a church, then you can go there with that. Or if you worked at a church, of course, you could put that on there. And no political affiliations unless you're going for a career in politics or something like that, and then it's okay, but we stay away from those types of subjects.
Hey, Mary,
Yeah.
what if you come across something where they have a question that's in that category and they want you to answer it? Then you don't answer, you just leave it blank.
You know, it depends. It's kind of up to you if you want to answer it knowing they've asked you something that they're not supposed to. They may ask you and not realize they're not supposed to be doing that. Or they may be doing it on purpose to see if you answer it. What I usually do is if I'm asked a question like that, I avoid it. I answer it, but I answer in a different way. So I guess if they said, oh, how many kids do you have or something like that, I might say something like, oh, my family lives in Gig Harbor. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. I answer something, but I don't answer what they're asking.
That's pretty good.
And then if you Google it, it will tell you how like you can turn them in afterwards. I forget who it's to. I mean, you can report people for doing things like that. But generally, I found when people ask that, they just don't know any better. Not all interviewers are professionals, and they just might be trying to make a connection with you.
Okay.
So it's usually an error, but you know, it depends. But yeah, or you could just say, "I'm sorry, I don't think that you're able to ask that to me. Can I have another question?"
Yeah.
But then I think that puts a weird atmosphere. So
Yeah.
I would probably just answer it in a totally different way and see what they do.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I will be quiet after that.
that's what media people do. They don't really answer the question. They say, "Well, I can't answer that, but what I can tell you is this." So cover letters, do or don't? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes? Only if they ask. So a lot of articles have been going around about the death of the cover letter. A lot of employers are saying, we don't have time to look at 2 documents, we don't want to see that. And that's the larger corporations, they just don't want to see it. And so in the job description, they will just say, apply with resume. And they mean exactly that. Don't send us a bunch of stuff, we don't want to see it yet. Yeah,
What about references? Don't you always have those with the resume?
only if they ask for it.
Okay.
Only if they ask for it. Yeah, they don't want that up front usually. They're not going to call them before they call you. They're going to call you and screen you on the phone usually, and then they won't usually ask for those until after the interview. Because again, they have to track all that and keep all of it for legal reasons, and they don't want to do that. They were just happy to have 1-page resume. In the job description, if they ask for resume and cover letter, then yes, you're going to give them a cover letter, and I'll show you an example of one. If they say optional, I would give them one, because it shows them that you made the extra effort. Because a lot of them will say optional, but these days, Word has it, they don't want one. But if they do, it looks like this. It's actually very simple, and so you would put dear hiring team to address them. Don't put Mr. or Mrs. or Madam or Sir or anything like that. Just dear hiring team is fine. If you have the name of the person, it's even better. You can put that on there, but you don't always have that. And then the first paragraph is just the reason why you're writing. It's the position or type of work you're looking for, and just tell them how you learned of the opening. They keep stats on that. They want to find out, you know, did somebody tell you about this? Did you find it on Indeed? Had you been tracking our website and then you noticed the job came up? That's interesting to them. The second paragraph is why you want to work specifically for them, and they will constantly ask you this, why us? You know, there's Facebook, Twitter, Google, Microsoft. Why do you choose it? Why do you choose us? And you could put something unique about yourself in this paragraph that will benefit them. Just don't make it too personal. It's a unique strength that you have that is business related or work related. And your motivation towards the career path. And again, don't get too personal with this, but do share a little bit of yourself so it makes you stand out among other people. Third paragraph is just your desire to meet with them when you're available and that you look forward to meeting them. So this is super simple. And again, they're just looking at it. They want to see that you can write a few coherent sentences. They want to find out how you learned about them and something about you, but don't make this long. Keep it really short. Any questions about the cover letter? And no typos in these, by the way. It's easy to do a typo in this because people think it's not a big deal. They spend all this time on the resume, but one typo in here will make it so that you don't get a call. Okay, so we already talked about this, but who knows what the ATS stands for and how it relates to finding jobs?
We can tracking system.
Yes, it's an applicant tracking system. It's the resume robots. And so a lot of the large companies use this, the smaller ones don't. They'll actually look at your resume. But what you can do to try to get past the resume robots is you can use JobScan. The person who developed this, he was a computer science graduate from UW, and he wanted to help people get past all these screeners and get jobs. He's a local guy. And so it's jobscan.co, not .com, to find this. You can get 5 free scans a month. And so what you do is, if I scroll down a little bit, all you do is cut and paste the job description on one side, and then cut and paste your resume on the other. And then you hit a button, and then it calculates it, and within a few seconds, it will give you a number for a match. You want to get it 80% or above. And it's looking at the keywords, it's looking at the education, the robot kind of is doing this whole thing. And for a lot of these, I've had people get like minus 20%, like it's been really bad. So we know it's not gonna get passed, but the good news is, you scroll down a little further and it says you're missing these keywords, you're missing this education, and you can see exactly what it wants. I mean, it's phenomenal. So I really like it. Sometimes it makes a mistake. It's not 100% foolproof. I had some issues with it the other day with some nursing students. So it's not perfect, but I do think it can highlight something that you might be missing. And I've also used it for if I compare the resume with the job description and then this word comes up and I'm like, oh, I don't have that skill. I guess I really needed that skill. Maybe I can go on lynda.com, like LinkedIn Learning, take a tutorial and slap it up there on my resume. So it could be something as simple as that if it's something easy to learn. But feel free to use jobscan.co, kind of experiment with it. But you only get 5 free scans a month. Don't pay for a membership. You shouldn't need more than 5 a month. Any questions about that? No? Anybody know about this already? It's pretty cool. According to a 2018 Career Builder survey, what % of employers use social media to screen candidates?
All of them.
70?
70?
It's 85. It's 85%, and this is the big companies. But I do this too. When I'm meeting with people and they're coming into the Employment Resource Center, before they come, I type their name into LinkedIn. I see what it looks like. And a lot of times, I see they don't have a photo, or I see an inappropriate photo. Them with their kids. Or I'll see typos in there, or I'll see a career changer who forgot to update it. And so we'll say something like, looking for a job as an advisor in higher education, but now they're applying to a job in IT or something totally different. So that's a real big turnoff. And if an employer sees that when they're screening, it's over. So make sure that you keep it fairly updated. It doesn't have to be perfect or have a lot of information yet.
What if they can't find you? Would that be bad?
I don't think it would be bad. I mean, it might puzzle them a little bit. They would rather find you and see that, just to know that you have a presence. But I don't necessarily think it's bad. Not everybody has one. I know that when we were looking for people before at Google, we thought it was weird when we couldn't find people. It was like they were a ghost. Yeah.
Are they mostly looking at like LinkedIn, or are they also judging you based off your Facebook like profile and cover photos?
You know, this one was for LinkedIn specifically.
Okay.
I have heard that a lot of employers are looking at Facebook. I've never seen that happen in real life when I was in HR. I think some of them maybe are digging that deep, so I would clean up the Facebook. I would clean up everything out there that's showing up when you Google yourself.
Okay.
But yeah, I think most of them are looking on LinkedIn.
So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, since that's kind of what they're looking for, it'd probably be beneficial to go and make one.
It would be beneficial. Yeah, and there's other reasons for wanting to make one as well. You can put a notification on there so it gives you jobs based on the words that you put in your description. And so it's really nice when LinkedIn starts offering me like job ideas or companies I never heard about based on what I put in there. So I like LinkedIn for that. And it can be very simple. You don't have to put your whole resume on there or anything. But yeah, I think employers like to know that you're serious about being a professional. When they see that, that's what they think. And you can connect with all your classmates, see where they get jobs, because you might want a job there too. Question?
Now I have just one suggestion for people who doesn't have social media accounts. I have two, like one professional and one my personal. So I
Oh,
separate them.
that's a good idea.
Yes,
Yeah.
they cannot find my personal because I use another name.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, I actually have seen a lot of people do that. Yeah, my sister's in law enforcement, and her name's Julie, but like on Facebook, she calls herself J-Bun or something because she doesn't want defendants and things like that, like tracking her down. But yeah, that's a good idea. That way you could still have something, but it wouldn't be identifiable to an
Yeah.
employer. Yeah, good idea. And then LinkedIn, so here we are. That was a good segue into this. So yeah, I really do like LinkedIn. This one is mine. It's very short. I've actually changed it since then because I had it in third person and somebody told me that was bad when I was down at WorkSource the other day, so I wrote it all in first person to make it more personal. So this is different than a resume. But basically you can just put your picture up there. You can put a picture of your projects behind here and connect with all your classmates and just people that you meet at job fairs and things like that because they can help you find work or internships. And what else about it? I guess what I like the most is that it's suggesting jobs to me these days. And not just jobs locally, but jobs all over the world because I set it up like that, so virtual jobs. I think that's really nice. It gives me good ideas of what I could do with my education. We have a job fair coming up April 23rd at 10 o'clock, so you can do your resume, your master resume, and take it for a test drive to the job fair. I know off the top of my head that Wizards of the Coast is coming. We invited them and they said they would come. Amazon is going to be there. I think Microsoft is coming. What other tech companies? There's about 45 employers coming, and we try to get them from each of the 40 programs at the college. So I think we have at least 5 technology ones, but I guess I would say every company is a technology company these days. They're all looking for people that can do that. So feel free to come to this if you have the time on the 23rd. And then another really important thing about finding a job in tech and finding some of the best jobs is networking or connecting with others. Some of the best jobs are just not even listed on there. People will suggest jobs to you or they'll get a job somewhere and ask you to come in. So this is just some tips on how to network at the job fair, for example, but always be thinking of how you can connect with people to help you in this quest. Is anybody in here an introvert, or does anybody identify as an introvert? Yeah? So this can be hard sometimes when we're asking you to network with other people. There's a great book at our LWTech library called Quiet, The Power of Introverts. It talks about introvert strengths and how they can use those in everyday life, but also as part of looking for jobs. The other thing you can do during the interview or anytime you're dealing with people and you're getting nervous, you can bring a prop. A bottle of water is great. It kind of calms your mind when you take a drink. Your resume can be a prop, so if you feel like the focus is on you, you can just kind of point to your resume, and that's helpful. Or a project. Bring a picture of one of the projects you've done. It can be something very simple, but again, it allows you to connect with people where it makes it feel a little more comfortable for you. At the job fair, for example, you can take breaks often. This can be overwhelming for somebody who's having a hard time being around a lot of people or a large, noisy group. Just go outside and take a walk and come back. And you can ask the employers at the job fair questions about themselves. And again, it takes the focus off you, but it also shows that you're interested in learning about them. So say, how long have you been with the company? How did you get into this field? What do you think the trends are for the future in this industry? So ask them questions. Is kind of an icebreaker. And you can always bring an outgoing friend to the job fair, like a wing person, and they'll kind of take the pressure off too, and then you can kind of segue into that. Just don't bring the friend to your interview. Don't bring your parents to the interview either. But for the job fair, yeah, you can totally bring a friend. And just practicing talking with people, letting them know that you're looking for a job, letting them know your strengths and your skills and what you can do, and it just gets easier and easier. And so this is what the tech panel told me the other day down in Georgetown. And so they said, we want to know your soft skills, like you're a collaborator, you're a team player, you have a positive attitude, but we need you to prove those with numbers, statistics, data, and projects. And that's when we were talking about those achievements under there. So they want the soft skills, you can put them up in skills, but then prove it. You want to be able to tell an employer your top 3 strengths and what sets you apart from others. You're always leading with your strengths. You're not talking about your weaknesses at all, unless they ask you. But generally, we're just gonna lead with strengths. And this one was fascinating to me. They said if you don't understand an interview question, ask for clarification. And they said that some employers are actually asking very vague questions at the interview to trick people and to see if they try to answer it and assume they know what they're asking, or do they stop and say, can you give me a little more information on that, or can you give me some clarification on that question? Because they said the problem is, particularly in IT, people come in acting like they know everything, or they won't admit they don't know something. So they won't ask questions. And they said, especially a new employee, we want them asking lots of questions. That's how they're gonna learn. And we're always changing things, so we want this open dialogue. I thought this was interesting. And so feel free to ask a lot of questions at the interview, not questions that are on the job description. That stuff you should know, and you should know a little bit about the company because you've researched them. But feel free to ask, how does the team interact, or can you give me a little more information on what you're looking for? You could actually ask them that question during an interview. So I thought that was really helpful.